What's up, everybody? We are live. Hold on, somebody echoing already.
It's
Hold
on his
on.
on his on his mic.
Okay, oh no, I'm putting you on mute already. Okay. What's up, everybody? What's good? What's up, Kia, Onu, Individual, Shanae, Layla, Kojo, people in the chat? What's popping?
Mm-hmm. What's really popping?
Good evening.
I feel like
Hello,
I'm not
hello.
getting like the energy right now. Like I feel like I need some energy or something.
What's up, Maria? Welcome to your next live. Hey.
Ready to
Thank
shake it up,
you.
baby. Ready to shake it up. David, you ready to do what we do best, baby?
Come on, man. Let's shake the table. Let's shake the table.
Oh, shaking the table.
Okay, so we got some more people joining us a little later. They'll pop in when they pop in. But let's go ahead and dive right in. No further ado. Let's kick off the conversation. First, before we do that, though, if y'all don't know, Kojo is sharing his platform with me to help me build up my channel, which I just started like a week or two ago. So if you want to do the right thing, if you rock with me, go on over to my channel and tune in over there and subscribe if you haven't already. But yeah, let's get into the topic. So I want to start with the ladies. We're talking about, you know, women's standards when it comes to dating and the pressure to settle. I feel like this is an important topic because there's just been so much conversation lately surrounding certain individuals, just placing all of these really strict standards onto women, and I feel like sometimes our voices can get lost in the conversation. So I just want to, remind everyone out there that women have standards too. And women, I feel like sometimes are pressured to bend those standards or lower those standards in order to fit within what men want, women to be like or whatever. So I just want to ask the ladies, uh, do you have standards? And if you do,
Y'all have standards?
what are those standards when it comes to choosing a dating partner? And they could be shallow or, in depth, but you could say it's whatever, you have standards, right? So Kia, let me go to you first.
Well, I know you was gonna pick me first.
I'll be surprising y'all.
So I'm probably the wrong person to ask. So I've been single for like ever. And then when COVID hit, it was like, ooh. But I do have my standards from being married. I know what I don't like and I know what I do like. So real quick, I just, already know. Like, when a guy like, come approach me and you like, so you approach me sideways. And they're like, you just turn everybody down. I'm like, because he's coming at me sideways. So I'm not going to waste his time or my time. So I do have standards. It's just a thing that I know now. I feel it in my gut, the red flags I see. Like, it's just a different level when you just been through some stuff. Like I've been through some stuff. And so I have standards now.
So when you say coming at you sideways, what do you mean by that? Can you give an example?
So you really want to know the most recent. So I hope he's not watching because he might not want to be my handyman anymore. Ooh. But
he out in the YouTube streets, y'all. The block is hot. Stay hydrated. Okay.
Yeah, stay hydrated. So, right.
Yeah.
Being a single woman with your own house, and especially with COVID, and it's hard to find someone to do work, even when you're paying. So I'm keeping it professional, trying to keep it classy. I tipped the guy real good, but like just so we could be clear that I'm not trying to get no freebies. I'm not trying to, I don't know how this. Not this not DD after dark. So like I'm basically not trying to give coochie points for this work. So, anybody know me, I'm practicing abstinence or whatever, but dude over here, like, okay, she got her own place, okay. So he didn't say anything to me the whole time he was here. So like 3 weeks passed, I don't have any work to do at this time or whatever. So Maria, do you know this guy texted me on a Friday night? Like, and so if you remember from one of the Kojo shows, I said, don't call me after 10. So he was like calling like 8, started the text threads. And he was like, so I thought maybe you saw something you liked. First of all, you had on a mask, so I couldn't really see your face. So where are you coming at me talking about something you thought I saw something I liked? Sir, I haven't said anything for you for 3 weeks. Like, where did that come from? And it was just like so arrogant. It was just like, no, I paid you and I tipped you well. So then he started asking, well, what are you looking for in a man? So this thread. So finally I was just like, I'm trying to keep my handyman because it's hard out here. So I'm still trying to like whatever. So he was like, well, what are you looking for? So I was like, you know what? Saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost with evidence of speaking in tongues. This will make him disappear. Do you know he still came back, Maria?
See, that's what I be talking about.
I'm like, well, why would you wait 3 weeks? So, dude, the guys on the panel. So it's like you were just sitting there, like again, and it was Friday night. So you just decide to approach one of your clients on a Friday night after hours. So the standard was like, sir, I don't want to date you. I didn't give you any inclination. And why would you just come at me like that? That was just like, it was just so rude to me. So yeah, I had standards. It was just like, dude, that was a turn off. Even if he was fine, he wasn't, but.
He definitely wasn't. Okay, Shanae, what are your standards? And, you know, when it comes to choosing a dating partner, and why?
Great question. So I try to keep it as simple as possible because I found that when I had the whole list, that it was just like, yeah, this guy doesn't exist. So I try to keep it simple. Number one, someone that loves God more than he'll love me. Someone that honors his covenant, honors his word, would honor his wife, would honor his partner. Someone that wants to build with me. Someone that I find attractive, as well as someone that just really has a sound character. And I feel like if we can start at that base level, we can build from there. It's so funny. My friend had sent me a text today, and I was like, "Oh, this is so timely because it goes along with what we're talking about." And the text reads, "It's a tweet that she saw on Twitter, and it says, you done fixed your breasts, your stomach, your hair, your lashes, your nails, your lips, and your knees, etc., etc. And you wonder why you still single because you never fixed your soul."
Ooh.
And that was like, boom. I was like, exactly. I've made the mistake of choosing people off of what the exterior is or what they say with their mouth. Because, you know, people can fix their mouths to say some of everything. And once I finally got past that and saw that, like, nah, you want the substance of someone. You want the quality of their character, even if they don't have this size shoe or that height and all that stupid superficial. Well, stupid to me. Someone else might find it very important that you have a certain shoe size and a certain height, but not over here.
Interesting. Okay. Layla, what are your standards? Why?
Well, I agree with Kia that it sometimes it takes getting what you don't want to know exactly what your standards are, what your boundaries are, because I find that a lot of times you take a lot of things for granted, right? So you might say, I want a man who has these practices and these things, but you're not consciously filtering for, kindness, generosity, and consistency with the good qualities that you want to see. Sometimes you assume you like take for granted and assume that a person will just display these base level things that just make them decent members of society. And it's not true. Or maybe you think because you've seen people acting a certain way that they will then transfer that onto you. So you don't even give it any weight. You know what I mean? And then you find out that there are very specific ways that sometimes people can see their partner, and that relationship exists in a bubble within their mind. Your channel, Kojo's channel, a lot of the channels of the super panel dive into sort of the mentality behind these attitudes, but a lot of it is like, just broken rearing and just, false ideas of what a man's role is and what a woman's role is. And sometimes that can leave you outside of what you experience your partner to be when you were not let's say, boyfriend and girlfriend, or engaged or married. I also, so one of my friends, when I got out of my last relationship, one of my friends asked me, like, what is my definition of love? And of course, we can always take, Corinthians and say that, but let's be completely real. Like, we're not all sort of filtering or holding anyone to that standard completely. So we all do need to have a very personalized definition of love. And I told her, and I really couldn't explain it, right? I hadn't thought of it on such a personal level. And my mind was reeling from getting out of that relationship. And I said, what I do know now is my definition of love must include respect and kindness, because you take for granted that a person who loves you will respect you. And I have understood now that love does not translate into treatment 100% of the time. Those types of things exist separately, because people can love you with all of their heart and just really not know how to deal with you, and really not understand that some things that are forgiven by their siblings or their coworkers or their lifelong friends are absolute deal breakers to you. So I told her, I know now it includes kindness and it includes respect. And she said, it's funny. I asked, my parents and my grandparents the same thing. Neither my grandmother or my mom said respect. And I find that, and that's not because they don't want to be respected. It's because it's not conscious top of mind. And also there's a lot of toxicity in family dynamics that you sort of generationally pass down, to where respect comes after being a provider. Respect comes after maybe, coming home every night. That may be what you consider to be respect, because you just don't really know how far left it could go. So I do agree that sometimes you have to see that dark end of the spectrum to know, like, oh no, there's a lot of stuff that I have to be very conscious of and very aware of as I'm dating in the very early stages.
That was deep. You said a very key thing about respect, and how love doesn't always translate into that. What does respect look like to you, Layla?
So to me, respect is at the very foundational level, treating people the way you want to be treated. This is the thing they used to, Anu's from where I grew up, like, they used to have little assemblies and stuff where they would sing us songs about, I'll treat you the way I want to be treated. All that little stuff that you just sort of push to the back of your mind, because it's just, oh, silence is golden, be kind, blah, blah, blah. You sort of push a lot of that back to the back of your mind. But respect is, when you're angry, do you just throw all of, the positive feelings you have for me out the window and engage me like an enemy? When you're upset, when you're tired, when you're frustrated, when you feel misunderstood, what is catching you from engaging me like a person that you hate? It has to be respect, because respect, when your parents come at you real crazy, or they say something that's so annoying and so unfair, and you fix your lip to be like, you know what? And the respect that you have for them stops you from doing that. It makes you say, you know what? I'm gonna have to either remove myself from this situation if that's possible, or I'm gonna have to find another way besides my gut reaction to be ugly to you. So I think within a romantic relationship, you have to have a respect that says there's just a bottom level that I won't go below when I engage you, no matter what. Because once the respect is gone, that slippery slope will take you all the way to hell. So, the respect just looks like honoring me as a person that you value consistently, in the way you speak to me, in the way you treat me, in the way you think of me when I'm not around, in the way you speak about me when I'm not around, in the way you engage me, even when if I'm slacking. That's a lot of it to me. That's not everything, but I wasn't expecting that question.
Great answer. Great answer. Okay. I want to hear from the men. How do you guys feel about the standards that women have when it comes to dating? I'll start with Onu.
I mean, I'm on the spot here. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the standards that women have. And I think as I've gotten older, you see that again, the the more quality of woman, the more standards you have. It all boils down to, does the guy respect those standards and how hard is he going to work for them? Because guys will go after easy before they go after complicated. If one girl, if I can get away by being, if I can get away without being my best, why try when there's other people that are willing to accept pennies on a dollar than for me going to be something greater than I want to be. So unless there's that situation where you get that person that's going to trigger you to be a better person with the standards, with the rubrics and everything, it's not going to matter if the guy's looking for something easy. And most guys tend to look for easy before they look for complicated and complex.
So Onu, you said something very key. There you go. Men go for easy before they go for complicated or complex, I think is how you put it. Ladies, do you feel like women do that? Go for easy instead of complex? Janae, what are you thinking?
Can you just define for me easy and complex here?
Onu, what do you mean by that?
All right, let's go with being chivalrous. Most women want a guy that opens their doors or opens the doors for them, be able to pull out their chair for them. Let's say take their groceries, take out their trash. If that's your standard, that's your rubric to what you want a man to do. If you find a guy is unwilling to do those things for you from the beginning, what makes you think he's going to change 3 months, 6 months down in the relationship? Unless you have huge discussion about what you want. You can change your standards later, but if I'm a guy who doesn't want to do those things, I'm gonna find someone who willing for me not to do those things, and to find someone who's willing to want me to do those things.
Okay, so are you saying that whether it's easy or complex is defined by whether or not the guy is willing to do those things? Like it's relative to that?
As well as when I guess when Leigh was talking about respect, how do you define respect? What does that guy have to do? What is he going to have to work? What is he going to have to show? If you want this guy to do all these things and that's the way you value respect, what happens when a guy doesn't do those things? What about guys who don't do those things or refuse to do those things? Because different ways guys go about it. Some guys are willing to go the extra mile to show you, hey, they're willing to do those things. There are other guys that, you know what, they're gonna go about their own way. They're gonna beat by their own drum. They're gonna do whatever they feel is acceptable. And hopefully they find women that are willing to accept that as their standard. Maybe that's lower than what your standard is, but at the same time, it's not what you would ideal, what you want, something perfect. So for you to get what you value in something, maybe, I'm not sure getting there, maybe settle for less. Maybe he doesn't do all those things that I want to do. Maybe he does 50% of things, and that's okay, and I'm okay with the 50 he does. But the other 50 that I do value, man, he doesn't do. So if you see a guy is willing to do all those things, now it becomes like what not a competition, but like it becomes comparison. Like, why does this guy chooses to do all these things, whereas this guy doesn't?
So is the guy that's in your definition, oh no, is the guy that's willing to do it easy or complex?
I would say complex. I see what you're saying. I would say that person's a complex or deeper individual. Where someone's unwilling to do those things, maybe that's more simpler.
So to answer your question, Maria, I think I've seen more of women choosing the complex in this example and just either hoping or putting forth a strategy to try to change that man versus going, I guess, for the easy option.
Kia, do you agree with that?
So again, I told you I just get rid of them real quick now. So it's just like any little thing. It's just like when I say that, it's just like, okay, my life, like I basically lived a, adventurous life. So at this point, basically my stuff is just point blank. So for example, I have pretty much my life together. I have my own house, I have my own car, I have my own career, have everything basically put in place. So as the man, like you said, the piggyback off what Anu said, some guys want it easy. So I'm not asking you that, to do everything for me. But let's say, for example, 3 years ago, a guy wanted to, I guess court me, date me, whatever y'all call it these days. And I mentioned I needed a roof. I didn't ask you for a roof, but you keep asking me why I won't give you a chance, but you didn't even tell me about a contract or nothing. And so I'm a single lady. So you didn't say, well, let me, come by, make sure they're not cheating you or nothing. So it was just like, okay, dude, you can't be mad at the next dude because you're not stepping up. I didn't ask you to pay for it. I have money, but you could have just said something. So I mentioned this roof a couple of times. And it wasn't like I was asking him to do anything, but he was just like crickets. Like, you're like, okay, I think I'm talking to myself. So that means that my life was not for him because you're not adding to it. And I move, like I said, with the way you move. So if you moving shady, I'm not going to, move, I'm not going over and buying behind for you because, again, I don't need you. So at this point, it's just like, if you don't want to be bothered, I'm not going to be cooking you dinner. Like, and that same dude used to be like, what you cook for that? What you cook? I don't even eat. Like, I order. But he had the nerve to be like, what you cook? Like, why am I cooking for you? You can't. Everything I mentioned a problem. If I say I got a flat type, the same guy was like, oh, okay. Like when you said, he wanted it easy because he was used to dating hood girls. So when it came to me, he like, she got real. Like if I said I had a flat tire, oh, well, you could take. I'm not taking a brand new car to the side of the road with Ray Ray. And it was just like he wasn't there. So like and Maria, like it just depends on what type of girl. If you have low self-esteem, and I probably was that way at 20, like would jump and do stuff. But now it's like I'm not complicated, but I want things how I want. And if you're not adding to the situation, so I don't know if that's like an easy girl, but a lot of guys may be intimidated because I'm just like, if you're not adding, I don't want to be bothered. And it doesn't make sense for me to waste his time because he wasn't doing anything. He wasn't willing to do anything. He wanted to come kick his shoes. I don't know which episode y'all was talking about. The guys that come leave their shoes at your front door. You can't do that here.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
So, Layla, what do you think? Do you feel like women go for the easier route or the more complex route when it comes to men? Like, do you feel like they approach it the same way?
I can't really say because I think a lot of times, and I don't know if this directly answers your questions, but I think a lot of times we have an idea in our head of like the standards that we have and like what we will and won't, settle for or accept. And it just completely becomes thrown out the window with, a careful application of, the dark arts or just like a time that we're in our lives that like, somebody might catch you slipping based on what you just came out of or based on what you're going through. So, I think when women, I think there's a season where a woman wants a simple man, right? Like a man that's just going to be like, I treat you right. I come home. Maybe it's not the most passionate or maybe it's not the most stimulating conversation, but the basics that I wasn't getting in the men who fed me in those ways that maybe can run toxic after a while. Like I'm done with that pain. So I want somebody who's just going to be reliable, show up and love me the way I want to be loved. I think that can happen. I think women oscillate between the two. But at the same time, I mean, I see the benefit in both. I think one is just a finer line to walk,
Mm-hmm. I hear you. Okay. So, individual, what are your thoughts? Like, how do you feel about women's standards?
I feel like there's nothing wrong with anyone having standards. I just also think right now what comes to mind is two different categories in which like you have a woman who reacts like Kia. I'm talking about the mindset, not necessarily Kia herself, but the mindset of like, immediately cutting off anyone who doesn't line up with their ideals, not necessarily like what's on their list or anything like that. And then also the woman who might be a little bit closer to desperate, not quite desperate, but a little bit closer, and is willing to accept things and then later change, hoping that the partner will be more malleable because of her persuasiveness. And depending on whatever that is, she decides, okay, let's try to see what happens, to try and be open to things, right? It's harder for me to find someone who's actually like more in the middle of finding that balance of like, okay, this is what I will accept and this is what I won't accept. And I usually find that that's because not a lot of people have what they consider to be non-negotiables or like what's okay and like and stuff like that. So in those types of areas, because people usually have an ideal instead of like a good idea of what exactly they want to partner with and the things that they can say, okay, I'll try this or I definitely won't try that. There's no meter, then it's harder for them to be able to find someone that actually is a good fit. I think being able to measure that meter by your values and their character is probably a surefire way to be able to measure whether or not those standards are reasonable, because sometimes standards just aren't reasonable. And that applies to both men and women, right? Where like you're just not on the level of wherever you're trying to acquire. And so you can't reciprocate whatever energy you would want from them, right? So if a guy wants a woman who is like an Instagram model and she's amazing, she has this totally different character or whatever, if he has nothing to be able to present that kind of woman, he cannot request that kind of woman. And I believe the same thing applies to women. If she is not able, there's nothing wrong with wanting a certain type of man, but then are you in those circles? Are you able to reciprocate whatever energy you would want from that person, right? So the standard isn't the issue. It's whether or not you can match that standard, I think usually is what runs through my mind. So, yeah.
So you're saying that there has to be like an exchange of standards.
An equal exchange.
An equal exchange.
Yeah.
Okay.
As best as possible. Because then you'd have to, okay, you have a standard for a certain type of man. Mm-hmm. What is that man's standard? Mm-hmm. It's just that simple.
So what's an example of like an equal exchange? Can you like define that within the context of like dating standards?
It really depends on the type of man. So like say we have an AJ, tall, dark, handsome, seems like let's say he has money, right? Let's say he has money. That type of man who acts like AJ isn't going to be searching for a lot of women because they're always coming to him, right? He's more laid back, reserved. He doesn't really feel like he has to do a lot. So then with that comes the mindset of a confident, but sometimes at times like cocky and like lazy type of person who doesn't really want to put in a lot of effort. Though on the surface, they may appear to be a lot of the things that you want. What type of standard of woman is he looking for? So let's say he's looking for a Kyra, right? Do you match that Kyra type if that's his type, right? Like, what can you offer that kind of man? He probably wants someone who's a little bit more, who can play that tit for tat game, right? Who can be not as aggressive as Alexis Fly. You know what I mean? Someone who can play around but isn't too dominant. Someone who can be able to boost his ego while still being able to add a little bit of spice. You know what I mean? Like challenge him, but not challenge him too much where it gets him too out of his comfort zone, right? You would have to really analyze the type of men that you prefer and see what they would want, right? Like, because if you try to appeal to someone with what they don't want, you're gonna be, it's just not gonna work, right? So like, there's nothing wrong having a standard. It's whether or not you can match whatever your standard wants. That's part of the game.
But I just want to add to what David was saying. So a lot of times what I've learned is that you have standards, but sometimes when you want to be in a situation so bad, you will lower those standards and you go in and you know what your standards is. It's just like your preference really. And when you change up, like, again, you guys, like I said, I don't cook. So if a man meet me, I'm going to tell you straight up, I do not cook. So don't expect that. So I'm not gonna go in there and start being Betty Crocker because now that's his standard. He wants somebody to cook, and then I'm really not in there cooking, or I'm getting carry out and putting it on a plate. And then sooner or later he gonna find out. So what I'm saying is like even like some of my past relationships, I had standards. I just fell into relationships. So I was always the chosen, where you don't even realize you got into a relationship. You like, oh, now you're my boyfriend. He just claimed me. Okay. And it just like was happening. And you, all the things that you knew were red flags, you didn't pay attention to. So women have to pay attention to those standards and stay strong, because if you don't, you're going to be sitting somewhere miserable or start, feeling like, like you hate it there, or you don't want to be there. Because again, that's the downfall of any relationship when you're not being truthful. That's a relationship built on lies. So the foundation is you're not who you are. You're not true to yourself. So I think we have standards. We just don't want to tell people, because you like, if a guy say, he fine, you be like, he fine, but he want me to cook. I'm sorry, I can't do that. And so for me, I have certain standards with guys. Like, I don't want a guy with a whole bunch of kids. Or at this point, how old I am now, he might have grandkids. I don't want the grandkids hanging from my lamps. My house is not child friendly. So you have standards like, okay, I don't. And then for me to change that, then I'm gonna be sitting there looking at his kids, or like, I wish they'd go home. So women just have to have like, stay strong to their standards. I mean, some stuff you can be in, but if it's something that you really like intense about, or you really feel strongly about, normally those things don't change. Because everything that I felt about my husband, I feel it now. I just chose to ignore it. So I just think people just have to stay strong to what they say. And if you lose out on that person, it's not meant to be.
So then I have a question. Sorry. Just so that you can elaborate. What happens when there are a lot of those non-negotiables, right? In which like there just seems to be a lot on the list that's just like, I'm not really feeling this, I'm not really feeling that. There's like, it makes you less agreeable in those cases. So then what would you say to someone who has a lot of things that they just won't put up with?
And that's probably why I'm over here by myself for so long, okay? Because it's just like, once like at the age that I am, it's just like, okay, I allow like a lot of stuff in my life. So now just certain things I know that will drive me crazy. Like, and it's just like, you might say, what are your standards? Okay, I want somebody with decent credit. I don't need you with a 450 credit score. I don't need you trying to live off of my credit score. Just as like, I need you to like. It might seem unreasonable, but I don't really want to date an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are hard because again, the money is not steady. So I have standards like certain things that. I want him to go to church. So I want him not to just go to church to the building. I want him to have a relationship with God, because that is one of my biggest things. Because I don't want you to say, oh yeah, well I believe in God, but you the biggest sinner out here, but so it's just, you have to be strong. Because again, like for example, what I just said about the church thing. So I dated a guy that was not in church, didn't have a relationship with God. And what happened? Slowly, I'm sitting in the bed with him. I'm not going to church no more. And I'm falling into my old life. So we just have to have standards and stick to them. Because again, instead of him bringing me closer to God, I was allowing myself to be taken farther away and was more going towards his world. So that was non-negotiable. And how he treat his mama. I have a standard. Look, I need you to talk to your mama right. I had another guy. He would talk to his mama crazy. And I was like, not me. And then eventually after time, he started talking to me crazy. And I was like, see, now you got Eastside Kia. Hood bougie about to come out because we're not doing that. But it's like standards. So now I pay attention. So those standards, I need you to have a good relationship with your mama. I need you to, have a relationship with God. And if, let's say if I do, I'm not saying I don't want a guy with kids, but I don't need you to have like 6 of them.
Right. Kojo, how do you feel about women's standards for men when it comes to dating?
Nothing wrong with it. You guys are allowed to have your standards. I mean, obviously, relationships. I think going back to what the point was just made, which is that if there's too many things that I call it sacrifices and compromises. You know what I mean? You can't make too many sacrifices. Before I know you, I can't make too many sacrifices. Sacrifices involve death, so that means I'm dying before I even got into any stage of relationship with you. Compromises are I'm meeting you in the middle. Sacrifices, I'm coming all the way to your other side. Now, if I'm doing that on too many different issues, it's probably not the right relationship for you. If you're having to make so many sacrifices, it's probably not the right relationship. Compromises are where we meet in the middle. So there are standards, for instance, where you may say, I want a girl to cook, but you understand she works. So the compromise might have to be, listen, you cook 3 days, I cook 4, or whether 4, you 3. And that may be the compromise, where the sacrifice is going to be like, I need you to cook. And regardless of whether you are working or not, I expect this to happen. Now, that girl's got a choice to make. Does she do this or does she not do this? Right? And that may just be one of many things, or it might just be one thing that they're saying, listen, that's the one thing I can't compromise on. I think everybody needs to go into this situation knowing what is their non-negotiables and what are negotiable. And I think what happens is the list gets mixed and blended, so it becomes just one whole list, right? And then you get some parties saying, rip up your list. You get some parties saying, write your list. And everyone's like, bro, do I write it? Do I rip it up? What kind of list do I come with? Like, do you know what I mean? But the truth of the matter is, there is always going to be a list. What needs to be on that list is negotiables and non-negotiables. You're going to have a list. You're going to have a set of standards that you are going to want to abide by. In fact, you have to. Because if we talk about sovereignty, that's you yourself are a domain. In that domain, there are rules and regulations that domain runs by. The moment you decide to go against those rules, you actually betray yourself. And when you betray yourself, if you've noticed, anytime you betrayed yourself, that's when you find yourself in a situationship, a really poor, toxic relationship, because you betrayed your own self. And that's treason, off with your head, right? And your head came off. It was rolling. Right? In those relationships, it was rolling and you didn't know what the hell you were doing. And then you look back and you're like, why did I do that? Because you betrayed yourself. Right? So I think it's up to every individual, especially women, because men are dogs. I'm just going to keep it 100% real with you. I love men. I love y'all. I love myself too, but I was a dog too. Right? So listen, we like to jump over fences. You understand? So you need to hold your standard, but your standard has to be very clear. What is negotiable and what is not negotiable? If it's negotiable, let's come to the table and negotiate. Some things I may give over, and some things will say meet in the middle, and some things I'll say, actually, when I think about it as I've grown, this doesn't even make sense. Okay, right? At 18, a lot of men were saying, can't date no girl that don't cook. And you're looking at him like when he gets to 25, but bro, when she's working and you're working, does that make sense? It don't make sense, does it? Yeah? If she's paying the bills like you're paying the bills, it don't make sense, right? But at 18, that may seem sensible. So I think that's what I would say about women's standards. Just make sure it's either negotiable or non-negotiable. You know, some people say red flag, yellow flag, green flag. They put it into different categories. However you want to put it, just make sure you have different categories so you know how to maneuver in that case.
Great points. I love what you were saying about having your standards be split into two categories between negotiable and non-negotiable. I think that is so key because a lot of women do get that mixed up. Like, I know me, like when, I was first coming out here trying to date and whatnot, I had it was definitely mixed up because my non-negotiables should have been negotiables and negotiables should have been non-negotiables. But my non-negotiables, I feel like after I experienced a few things, became like a long list, right? To the point almost of self-sabotage, where it was just like, really like this could definitely be a non-negotiable. So, ladies, I want to hear from you, like, on your list, what would you consider negotiable standards versus non-negotiable standards? I'll go with Layla first.
So negotiable standards are things like, status and finance. Let's put that in that bucket, right? At this point, I am pretty much financially self-sufficient. While I desire a man who makes substantially more money than me, who comes with assets and an upwardly mobile career path, whatever it may be, I do understand that there are some qualities that have more longevity and that are actually more fulfilling and more feeding to me in a relationship. At the end of the day, if you have a ton of money and you're doing other things that sort of make me feel off balance or insecure or ways, that's going to impact my attraction to you and is going to impact my level of respect for you. So it's gonna end up hurting our relationship in other areas. So, you know, those types of things are negotiable to me. And what that career path is, you know, of course, my parents are immigrants, and you know, there's a rote path of like, he has to have this type of degree, he has to be doing this type of thing. And that does not necessarily need to be for me. It hasn't for a long time, and I haven't dated that way. But, you know, there are a lot of people I know who are like, I'm not about to be out here dating some dude with a community college degree when I have like my PhD, or I have this, or I have that. Right. So, you know, those things are negotiable. Non-negotiables, I think I mentioned those. Respect. How you treat me specifically. I cannot compartmentalize other aspects of our relationship. I'm the type of person, I remember I was dating a guy and he had to get up at like 4:00 in the morning to go do something for work. And he's like saying goodbye. And I literally was like, remember when you said that one thing last night? Like, what did you mean by that? Like, can we talk about it? Like right now? He was like, are you serious? It's 4:00 in the morning. I'm like, I can't, that's not how my mind works. Everything spills over into everything else a lot of times. So it's like, if we're not on the same page in so many other areas because I feel a way about how you treated me, or I feel a way about how you spoke to me, it becomes so difficult. It becomes such a strain. It becomes such a burden. I think another non-negotiable is like how you engage children. You know, if you want to think about longevity, because, you know, people say things like, oh, our marriage was perfect and then we had kids. Kids don't ruin a marriage. Attitudes towards parenting ruin a marriage. Attitudes towards each other and ability to prioritize ruin marriages. And ability to, be on one team, that ruins a marriage. You know, these types of things that people say, people generally point to as ruining a marriage. It's not that. It's just that you guys were never on the same page to begin with. Some parents whoop their kids, corporal punishment, they believe in it. If you're married to someone who doesn't, they're going to look, that's child abuse to them. It's going to be a huge issue. Like forever, you know what I mean? You might actually end up having to get divorced because you're going to love your kids more than you love each other for a long time there. So, you know, I have not written them all down, but I know based on my experience, and maybe I should write them all down. I know Shanae didn't have great experience with the lists, but maybe I should write them all down just to sort of keep them top of mind, maybe pin them somewhere. But it's far reaching and it's multifaceted. Because I think with every category, you have certain foundation blocks that are non-negotiables, and then some of the frills become, if you have more in this area and less in this area, we can make that work, because I'm sure somebody is perceiving me the exact same way. Maybe not me specifically. I'm obviously perfect, but, you know, someone else that's like me. Just kidding, guys. Just kidding.
Not far off.
Aw.
So Shanae, I know you don't like to keep a list, but off the top, like if you were to just like identify some, you know, standards that you would put in the category of negotiable versus non-negotiable, what would they be?
Negotiable would be, and it's funny because when I sit here and think about it, it's like, yeah, I've never like entered into a relationship going, now, do you make this much? So like your financial status for me, negotiable. I don't know that I have a preference on you making more or less than me. I think my issue is what is your outlook on finances, and do you have the ability to build together with me? Much like Layla, I've done well for myself, so I'm not in this position of where I'm looking for a man I'm not trying to be taken care of. So, but I do want to build generational wealth with someone. So I would need to know his outlook on that. Non-negotiable is number of children. And I waver between 0 and 1. And that 1 has to be like going to college. Negotiable. your appearance to a degree, and I say that because like having this like 6'1", 275 washboard stomach, that didn't work. That did not work. So, and I don't want to limit God, right? So if he wants to send the man looking like not exactly according to the list, but he has all of the contents and the potential to build with, why would I let his aesthetic, unless it were like a case where I just had zero attraction, right? Mm-hmm. So it just has to be attraction there. Non-negotiable would be your, are you a born again believer or not? Non-negotiable. Not willing to negotiate there. Negotiable. I'm willing to negotiate on where you want to establish life, where you want to set up our family. That's negotiable for me. I can go into that a little bit more, but we'll leave it there. Another non-negotiable, like I'm huge into my family, right? Love family, want to continue that type of legacy, right? If you're completely disconnected from your family, you don't talk to your mom, your dad, your siblings, and they're not like serial killers and abused you, like I don't see how we're going to be able to build together if there's that level of brokenness that you're coming from. So that for me, whereas before it was negotiable, I've like we were saying earlier, I had a chance to date someone and you know, who, when he told me off the rip, yeah, me and my dad don't talk, I should have took that and said, hold on, dig a little bit deeper, because what ended up unfolding was quite a big issue. And then that's just something I need to be very, very upfront about and non-negotiable.
Good points. Kia, how would you categorize negotiable and non-negotiable standards?
So like I said, I haven't really sat down and taken a list. So I do want to respond to what Tiffany said. A lot of my past relationships have determined who I am today. But to add to that, I took time out because I dated my whole entire adult life. So I'll just go ahead and tell you guys my age. I'm 44. So when you date from your, 18 to pretty much my separation of my marriage, that's a long period to date your whole entire adult life. So I've never been alone. So if you go from childhood, from where basically your parents told you what to do or you conform to what they wanted, and then you're constantly in a relationship, when you get that time alone, like I had my rock bottom moment. So I'm not just one of the people out here just like, okay, I'm never going to be married or whatever. I know in my heart. So the average person will not know it unless you have a relationship with God. And so I've learned to ignore what society expects or what people expect. Like, you still over there by yourself, girl? I'm content. I'm happy because during that time I got to know myself. So when you realize what doesn't work for you, like you said, you just lie for no reason. It's not a white lie, it's a lie. So certain things that you just realize it right away, like, okay, these are things that are not negotiable. Like you said, the lies, you're not calling back. With the little nice little feature on the phone, you read it, but you just chose not to, you ignore me. It's like respect thing. Just say, hey, I'm busy right now. Just show me that much, respect that you just, respond. So that means it wasn't that important. Sometimes you may be busy, but not all the time. You say you're going to call back. So just those little things are important to me because I didn't get that in the past. So when I say like I'm very intentional about my moves, I'm very intentional. Like it's like God has taken me to a level that is just awesome. And when y'all, wherever I'm at down the road, y'all gonna be like, God sent her to bomb, man, because he prepared me for that husband. Because my prayer in my prayer closet was very intentional. Lord, prepare me for my husband. I say prepare him. He need to prepare him too, but prepare me from all my brokenness and all my hurts or whoever hurt me or whoever did whatever to me. I know, like I said, some things are no-nos. And so that's why I said some women, we have to learn how to, like I said, don't just feel like you have to be with somebody because your girlfriends are asking, why are you still single? And I know one day we was talking after live or whatever, it was like, well, why are, certain women are pretty, you got a good job, you got it together, but we settle for people, like you said, when you know that you should not be lowering your standards. And when I meet somebody that is exceptional, then I might give them a second look. When you coming with the straight shenanigans, I'm not wasting my time. I got more stuff to do. I got a full-time job that keep me busy all day. I do my other hobbies. I do, other stuff. So women, like I said, my standards are different now because, again, I'm 44. I'm in a different place. My mindset is different. And that's just like a blessing of God. When you get that rock bottom and you say, Lord, just do what you have with me. Do whatever you need. Because at that point, it's just like, I've tried all my ways and it didn't work out. So when they say bad relationship, yeah, them bad relationships shook me, woke me up. Like, girl, you don't never do that again. You never let a dude tell you, well, you better be glad I came home. Just little stuff that we allow. And I'm just going to kick it with y'all on the real. I'm hood bougie. A lot of women go through stuff or have to do stuff and they want to admit it to their girlfriends so they're too embarrassed. But I just tell you, like, hey, I sure did. And that was the stupidest thing I ever did. Because most of us got a whole bunch of stuff that we judge other people about, but we've lived it. And just, like I said, don't want to talk about it. But I will talk about it and say, hey, yeah, I'm a little hard because I'm not bringing nobody in this house. Again, you're not about to fornicate with me. You're not about to get these goodies for free. That's non-negotiable. So you try to talk me into giving you my goodies? No, you're not married to me. It's non-negotiable. So those certain things, and people don't understand like your commitment with God. That was one of my commitments. I was like, Lord, you get me out of this, I won't give nobody else these goodies. So the average man don't understand that, or the average person. So, a lot of times with our standards, we have to stick to them. And like, with that being said, it's just awesome. Like I said, I don't want to keep on babbling, but you have to be in touch with yourself. And we all got this thing that God gave us. It's called instincts. And, in the church where we call it the Holy Spirit. When you know something is wrong, you have to be in touch and be like, no, that's some garbage. It's not going to change, sis. Everything that I've ignored in my past, it was garbage. So that's all I got to say, sis. People just got to be intentional and know what you like. Like I said, in those bad relationships, God will use what was meant for your bad, what was meant for your harm, for the good. Not for your good, but the good of all. So, like I said, I'm good over here. Like I said, when I turn them down, it's a reason why. I don't just be over here like, I'm too good to be over here. I'm real humble. I'm like one of the most down-to-earth people. But when you come with the shenanigans, like the dude with the handyman, who does that? What I look like?
Yeah. So you said something key, like a lot of women out here do be lowering their standards and bending and like putting up with stuff that, don't meet what they should be putting up with. David, I know you have to leave soon. So let me ask you, do you ever feel like there's ever a point where a woman needs to lower her standards? Or like, do you feel like there's ever a time when a woman's standards are too much? And if so, like, Koja, and if so, like, what would that look like, or why?
Okay, so just in case just to make sure I'm tracking right, is there any case in which a woman should lower her standards? Are you looking for a specific type of scenario, or are you asking for like a principle?
Give me both.
I think, man, that's difficult. Okay, so let's use an example that we've seen before in Blue Therapy. I forgot her name. I think her name is Deborah or something like that. In which she saw her father take care of her and provide a sense of security, right? And so she also wants a partner to provide a sense of security, but she confused, in my opinion, security with luxury, right? So she has a certain standard of what she considers to be security. In that case, it's fine that she would want a partner who can provide her sense of security. However, in that same scenario, she wasn't providing anything. It was only until she said it was only until after marriage that they would consider what she would bring to the table. That's not very reasonable, right? Like that's a case in which, okay, you may have to lower your standards or raise your own game, right? There's only two options. There's You can't expect for someone to pour into you and you're not pouring into them, right? That's to me a clear example of someone who's not capable of, or who doesn't currently have the capacity for empathy, to be able to bring to the table whatever they want to also receive, right? A case in which you have to lower your standards is when you realize you don't have the capacity to be able to offer whatever your standard is, whatever they would want. So in Deborah's case, in which she does want a life of luxury. However, if she were to self-actualize and realize, okay, I'm not able to provide whatever these highly wealthy men want in terms of a housewife. I don't want to be a housewife, or a baby maker. I don't want to be a baby maker. I can't provide that sort of partnership that they would want. Then I would have to change the type of man that I'm looking for, a man who is much closer to what I'm able to provide, which is most likely going to look like a 50 type of split, right? It's just being more realistic with what's around you and understanding, okay, to me, it just goes back to what that person is asking for, or what your favorite type is looking for. If you know your type isn't into, okay, let's be honest. If you know your type isn't into a lot of dark-skinned women, you may have trouble in that area. If you know your type isn't into fuller women, you may have trouble in that area. So it's either you fit what your type wants, or you do some reanalyzing and you say, okay, what is more realistic for me? And that doesn't mean that you're settling. It just means you're readjusting, you're recalibrating. And that's okay, right? It's being able to see the landscape for what it is and say, okay, I like this, but that may not be good for me. If you like the cool guy who is a charmer, you may also have to realize that he's going to be a ladies' man. And if you're not comfortable with him being friendly with a lot of women, just naturally, then you may have to recalibrate, or at least set some boundaries from the beginning of that relationship, whatever it may be, to see if they're cool with whatever you're down with, right? So I think there's a lot of there's nothing wrong with having standards. It's whether or not those standards are realistic. If you don't think that you can be able to match the quality of life of what you want, of the partner that you would want, then you have to tell yourself the hard truth and accept it to be able to actually reach your ultimate goal, which is to have a high functioning relationship with somebody who respects you and values you. That's really what it comes down to. And that means you may not get your ideal, but that doesn't mean you're not getting a great partner.
Interesting. Good points. Good points. Shem, nice to have you back on the panel. How are you doing?
Hi, good night, guys. I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. So I know you came in a little later. I don't know if
Yeah, my apologies.
Oh no, it's fine. I don't know if you got a chance to hear like some of the things that's been said, but I want to get your thoughts on the topic of women's standards. Like, how do you feel about them, and do you feel like there's ever a scenario or instance in which, women need to lower their standards, or their standards are too high?
All right. Well, everybody has their standards.
Oh, did we lose him? Is
That. Oh, sorry. We good?
We good now, I think.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. I'll start with women who have high standards, right?
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with women having high standards, but does she meet that high standard herself? A lot of women look for these high standards, but they're nowhere of these high standards themselves. You understand? So if you're looking for a man who is, is super rich, etc., and super handsome, he has everything 10 out of 10 in everything, and you're not 10 out of 10 of everything yourself, then there's like what you're asking for the world, but you can't give the world yourself. Some women put their standards too low because sometimes they're in a place of loneliness, and that's a big thing. A lot of people end up in relationships because of that lonely place that they're in, and it's not that they don't like the person, they like the person, yes, but they put their standards to a point where they're not exactly happy for everything going on in the relationship, and they know that things can get better, but just because of that lonely place that they're in, it's they feel comfortable with it. At least they feel like, at least I have somebody with me, at least I have this guy. But at the end of the day, you look at yourself as a woman, you're working hard, you want to meet your goals, you want to reach your dreams, but you're with this guy which doesn't push you towards that, right? And it's always good to have somebody to motivate you and always push you to where you want to be in life. Likewise, you would push that person to where they want to be in life. So I think as it pertains to standards, you women should have the standards in place where uh they, how should I put it, like you don't expect to get everything out of a guy, but as long as these key values, respect, loyalty, communication, there are just found basic foundation components of what a relationship's supposed to be like. As long as that is there, if it's plus more, then hooray for that. But as long as these core foundational values are there, then see where the relationship goes.
Okay, interesting. Hey, Light, how you doing? Welcome to the conversation. Good to see you back.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thanks for
Hey.
me. I just wanted to interject, I guess, my thought based on the conversations that you guys have been having is that I guess I look at it as in two separate categories, and maybe it's corresponding a little bit to what you guys were talking about as far as negotiable and not negotiable. But I think of a standard in a partner, in a man in my life, to be the type of person that he is, how he approaches the world, how he interacts with people, his particular values. And then I think about the preferences that are really not, they actually are a little bit different for me when it comes to that list that we all make early in our dating life, that we want him to look a certain way, we want him to be a certain personality, we want him to have a certain type of gifting as far as his talent. And I think all of that is just preferences. But when it comes to standards, for me, it really is about, is he a man that can stand up on his own? Can he confront certain situations in a certain way? Can he have a conversation without getting into heated discussions, if it's not necessary? I just think that those are the types of standards for me that are important. How it is that you approach the world, how you communicate with your family, how you communicate with strangers, how you move through the world in general. So everything else, if a person is more of an extroverted personality and I would have preferred someone introverted, I think that that is a preference, and I can sort of move through that. I can go either way, because that's not going to affect how he actually approaches the world. If he's a person that is an entrepreneur, like Tia was saying, that could be my preference, but I can actually also deal with a person who just, prefers to be like a steady guy, and I want to be in this one job, and I want to be able to provide some security for a family. I think that they're so separate. But I think that that is where people in their the young dating life get confused when it comes to standards. That the things that you think that you want when you're in your 20s are things that you find later are not going to be as important, because when you're in your 30s or your 40s or your 50s like myself, it is just not that important anymore. But for you to be able to be with me, move through life with me, comfort me, I can comfort you, I be my soft place to fall, I'll be your soft place to fall, encourage me in my pursuits or in my beliefs, or and I do the same for you. Those are the things that will last throughout lifetime of a relationship. And all of those other things are kind of like, oh, did he have bad credit at the time when we got started? Well, maybe he's got better credit now because he's older. So if you're a person in your 20s and you're saying, okay, he doesn't have the greatest credit right now, I think if he's approaching his credit, say, okay, I do want to do something that's going to get me to a longevity with that. That's actually a part of his value. That's a part of the way he approaches the world. So I'm not going to, in my 20s, I don't know that I had that same thought, but my encouragement would be, don't toss him aside because he doesn't have bad credit. Maybe reconsider a relationship if he's someone who doesn't care, or someone who is not really trying to find his way in life. And credit is just, I'm just using credit as an example, but there are a lot of things like that as well, that you can look at it from a perspective of saying this is not going to last a long time. The problem is that when you're in your young dating life, a lot of people don't know to look towards the longevity. They're thinking that, if we, but we have fun and we laugh, and I like that too. I like a person that makes me laugh. I like a person that can actually participate in high banter, but that might not be the thing that's going to take you into longevity if that's what you're looking for. And some people are not looking for that. Some people are looking for, let's see how it works today. But I think that in order to really understand yourself and understand your partner in your relationship, you sort of have to separate those two different things.
Gotcha. Good points. You mentioned something I thought was so interesting and very key. You talked about, how preferences and standards, there's definitely a difference, but those also change with age and experience. And so this is where I kind of want to bring the conversation now to like dive a little deeper on that, because I do feel like, as women, there is a certain pressure for us to, first of all, be in a relationship by a certain age or before a certain age. And, I know that I've been told before in my life that I need to lower my standards, right? Now, I wonder now, having heard you say what you said, that like standards can change because certain things are not as important to you as you get older. Did they really mean change your standards, or did they mean lower your standards? So I want to get your thoughts on that, Kojo, because I feel like, I've been told that by men in the past, and like, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I think there's a case for a bit of both. Sometimes you can go into a relationship and, like I said, what you are considering to be your standard can potentially be negotiable. And that's dependent, again, that really is dependent upon the kind of person and the quality of the person that you have in front of you. If this person is holding certain characteristics that are loving, caring, respectful, that honor you, that loves you, then there can be a case of maybe certain standards being, okay, cool, do you know what, I can compromise on this particular standard, on this particular aspect. For instance, as Kia has said, she doesn't cook, right? But she finds a man that really loves her, digs her, cares for her, is respectful, is on point on every aspect. And he asks, it's not a requirement. He asks, hey, Kia, do you know what? I would really love it if you would cook a bit more. Then maybe she might want to respond to that, right? It's a suggestion, it's an ask, it's not a requirement, right, from the other party. In that case, then there can be a shift and say, hey, maybe you can shift on that. I think these things, if we're like I said, if we're differing on too many issues where the standard, we're not meeting each other's eye, I'm probably not meant to be in a relationship with you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm probably not meant to be in a relationship with you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I've always said this, as much as whether a man or woman likes a standard of the other person is irrespective, because you can find someone else who probably will abide by those standards. So, I think someone put in here 50-50 roommates. If that's your standard, that you want him to pay all the bills, you go for it, love. You go for it. Go and find a guy that will pay all the bills. All right, and see how that goes. If then it gets to a point where he's like, okay, it's not really working how I want it to work, then there may be, okay, is this necessary? Because a lot of us are trying things out by experience. I can't tell you to change something necessarily, because unless I know you personally and I know what you're about, it's very hard to really say that standard is not a correct standard, right? Because none of our standards, all our standards are oftentimes are socialized, they're conditioned, they're through our environments, what we experienced. So it would be very difficult for me to say, hey, that standard is off. Even with when I spoke about Deborah from Blue Therapy, I said, this is her standard. How I feel about it personally makes no difference. This is what she said is a standard. Now, where there's an issue is what your attitude is when you're issuing that standard. If it's atrocious, your attitude, then that's a completely different conversation. But if that's your standard, and that's what you put to me as, like, you can't go to a job and then say, well, you know what? I looked at the CV here, and I looked at my CV. I looked at what you guys were asking for. I think you need to change a few things. Yeah, because what you asked for, is what you're asking for really needs to be bending here. You know what I mean? Like, change that. You can't do that. The ad was put out as X, Y, Z. You have to abide by X, Y, Z. I'm not saying anybody's a job advert. I'm just kind of giving that example to understand that when someone puts that out, it's up to them what they've put as a standard. You can't go now flexing that. Do you know what? You have more power as a person. If you come to someone and they say to you, listen, this is my standard, and you say to them, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Not for me. That's your power. Your power is to say no. Why do you want to force that person into a certain lifestyle? I think people do that because they are, they don't know any better. They're used to pressurizing people into change. Do you see what I'm saying? Right? Like, Maria, if we have different standards, I'm just going to be like, Maria, I appreciate it. You're a lovely woman, but it's just not my thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's it. And I have to accept that. But there are people here who don't want to accept that because they're used to pressurizing people and getting their own way. And so it becomes a habit. Yeah, it becomes a habit. You tell people change and the girl changes, or tell the guy change and he changes. But, if we know anything about life and experiences, people can only change so much before they end up imploding. Ask Haley and ask Jacob and see how that went. Yeah.
Right. Trying to change people never actually works.
Exactly.
So, ladies, do you ever feel like you've been pressured to, like, change your standards, lower your standards, or to settle for something that's not quite what you were going for? And, have you ever been pressured to do that? And have you ever done that? And how has it turned out? Layla, I'll let you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Kojo just said that sometimes a person will try to pressure you because, they want you to bend to where they are. They don't want to have to move to what you're asking for. They don't want to just let it go. Mm-hmm. And I would say that's more common than the other approach of just kind of accepting that it isn't going to work and moving away. That takes a level of maturity and honesty that I'm not sure everyone has at every stage of their lives. But yeah, I've been told, Where else are you going to find these things that I do have? You're so lucky to have found the man that is everything that I am. You're going to complain about these things? It's like, yeah, because if those things are this is what I said to my ex. I said, you know, let's say you're a potato farmer, right? You're getting up hours before the sun, you're farming potatoes until the sun goes down. You're working hard. Nobody can deny that. But if I am allergic to potatoes, I'm still starving. No matter how hard you're working, no matter how much I appreciate your work ethic and what you're willing to do for me, I still can't eat. It's not translating to food that nourishes me. So it's not like, but some men are like, where are you gonna find a man that's gonna do all this potato farming? And it's like, look, I'm just not looking for it, you know. So, you know, that's where the desperation comes in, is like, or the insecurity or the fear or the you know, anxiety about social pressures and things like that comes in, like, oh well, what if I can't find, you know, anything else? What well, maybe I can just starve because at least we have these other things, you know. Those are situations. I've been in that situation where somebody has sort of tried to be like, look, you see the dating pool out there is bleak, so you're gonna toss a prize fish back. It's like, yes, if it will close up my throat due to allergies, I'll toss it back. But yeah, so that's how I've experienced it. Not necessarily that a person was trash, you know, on paper. It's just that, like, the things that are not on paper weren't working, and they wanted me to settle for what it looked like and what the paper said.
Mm. You bring up a good point about people putting in front of you this idea of scarcity, and that you have to lower your standards because there aren't a lot out there better that you can find. I mean, I definitely can relate to that, but it's like, you know, a lot of people end up falling for that notion because, you know, somebody said it earlier. I think Shem said it. You don't want to be alone. And, you know, you don't want to feel like, you know, you can't find better out there, you know? So, Shem, what are your thoughts on that? I know you said you wanted to add to that point.
Yeah, based on what you just said, it's okay to be alone. It's very important to be comfortable being alone and love your company. It's the best company you'll ever have. And when you develop and have a love for your company, and you have your standards and you know what you want, no matter what comes out there to you, that it's way below that, you will never settle for it, right? But going back to what Kojo was saying, right? I believe that no matter if you find the person that you're looking for, there will always be compromise. Always. There must be a time down the line in your relationship, right, that person does things or some things that you will not like. How you move from there is the important part, right? And are you willing to live with these things, right? It may be little petty things that, you know, nothing serious. That's just the character of the person or the personality of the person. However, everything else is what you love, everything else is what you adore. But there's just a few things that, you know, that's just that person's character. But are you willing to live with these things, right? So there must be some compromise, but at the same time there must be effort. And that goes back to Kojo's example where he said about the cooking. He's everything that you need, what and whatnot, but he doesn't cook. Trust and believe you me, if he's really into you and if he really loves you, he will make an effort to cook. He will learn, right? So that's where communication again comes in, right? For example, I don't know how to cook. I'm with someone and maybe they have a very busy schedule, right? They know how to cook. They can teach me. If I'm not willing to learn, then there's a problem, in my opinion, right? Because I mean, yes, I may not know how to do it now, but if I'm really interested and invested in a relationship, I will make the time to learn how to do it, whether from my mom, my sisters, or somebody, a friend, or whatnot. So yes, there is compromise, but at the same time, there must be that effort that you put into a relationship that, you know, that you'll be able to make the person happy. And effort goes both ways. I put in the effort, you put in the effort. And I always tell a lot of people, relationships are very easy, but we make it so difficult.
Mm.
And I think it's easy because if you meet someone you're attracted to, someone you have a connection with, someone that's on your wavelength, right? And there is these foundational values, communication, respect, and so on and so forth. I think the relationship will be extremely easy. The problem comes where there is a lack of one of these core foundational values, right? And communication, I believe, is the biggest part of or one of the biggest things, is because, you know, something may happen occur in a relationship and then you may keep it to yourself. You may not say something just because you don't want that person to feel some type of way. No, say it right there and then. See how you feel. Both parties, say how you feel. You say how you feel, you communicate, you come to a common understanding, and then you move forward in a positive manner. It's the only way it's going to work.
Mm. Mm. You said so many gems just now. I want to go back to the first gem you dropped, where you said it's okay to be alone. I think that that is so key, and definitely an underrated sentiment in our society, especially when everyone wants all of this instant gratification all of the time. And I also know that that messaging isn't always given to women in a way that gives them permission to say it's okay to be alone, especially when we get to a certain age, right? So, like, for instance, ladies, have you ever been almost shamed for being single, especially at a certain age? And can you talk about that experience, Shanae? I'll go to you first, and then Kia, you can go after.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely have been shamed. Coming from a church background, and some people's ideologies in church is that a woman is to be married, right? The woman that's single, it's like coming to church with a red scarlet A on your dress, and it's just like, or you get the questions of, "What's wrong with you, baby?" And it's like, I didn't know that being single was wrong. I would look around and see people that were in marriages with people they didn't even like, but I'm crazy or something is wrong with me because I'm single. Um, it's interesting because I spent I would say like my late 20s into early 30s, just relationship after relationship after relationship, never taking a break, right? And then realizing that, ooh, that's not healthy. And then decided to take the last half of my 30s. I am purposely single. That entire time, oh my God, the people trying to hook me up, the I got a nephew of mine, I got a grandson of mine, all those attempts, showing up to lunches with people that I thought it was just going to be us ladies, and there's this one magical guy sitting there, and guess who he was for? Just all that type of stuff. And even the mothers of the church, baby, them ovaries only gonna work for so long, you don't want to give God something to work with. And I was just like, wow. Some of y'all's ideologies are just, so number one, don't mind another woman's uterus. That's one. Two, don't mind another woman's dating life. Like, if it's not impacting you, I'm not understanding why me being married makes any difference to you. The optics don't bother me. I don't care. I'd rather be with someone that I want to be with and that wants to be with me. And I just knew that at that time in my life, I was just not ready. We talk about women having standards and women wanting a mate, but I was like, heck, am I desirable? Like, what am I offering to a man at this time? Because again, going from relationship to relationship, I was broken and I wasn't going to do anything but probably cause him more damage. Sure, I could have had a man and I could have even married some of them. And then what? Got divorced a couple years later, like a lot of the women in church that I saw. I wasn't interested in that. So, and even now to this day, you know, casually date, but still, you know, the pressure to be married, you know, Shanae, you're over 40 and what about children? All your pregnancies are going to be high risk. And I was just like, it's the way y'all just speaking all this stuff over my life that is just like really interesting to me. Wow. Yeah. So have definitely experienced the shaming, the people asking questions. And I mean, even questioning my sexuality. You know, well, I knew you've been single so long. I was just kind of wondering if maybe you swung the other way. I was just like, y'all really need to calm down. What does it matter? What if I walked in here with a boyfriend and a girlfriend? Then what? You know what I mean? So just, you have to get to a space. I love what you said, Shem. You really have to get to a space where you're one, comfortable with you, and you're not going to let what other people looking into your life care. You cannot let that weigh into the decisions that you make for you. Because at the end of the night, when you make that covenant, that's between you and that person and God, not all these other people talking about what you should be doing. I have cousins that married really young, like in their early 20s, and they would get so much pressure, like the year they got married, to have children. And I was just like, you know what's so funny? All these people pressuring you ain't gonna offer to come over and help you with none of them kids. Yeah, they're not even gonna answer the phone when you need a babysitter. So again, I use that as an example to say you cannot let what shaming comes your way, what ridicule, what speculation, it does not matter. And oftentimes people that are quick to say all kinds of manner of things about you, it's because they're really unhappy with their own lives, whether they're married, single, or whatever. They're projecting often. So you have to be able to identify that. And again, just focus on you, or focus on making you the most desirable and healthy, happy person that you want to be.
Good points. Kia, sound off.
So listen, I always say people love to give advice, but you don't have all the facts to give sound advice. And a lot of people want to add their 2 cents, and they don't even have all the information. So they're giving you bad advice, really. So, you know, they don't know what's really going on in your life, or what's really happening, or what's, you know, going on inside. So yeah, like with me, again, I'll say my age, 44, no children, no husband, 2 dogs. And people just like, okay, like, what's wrong with you? Aren't you worried about being like the old maid? You're going to be by yourself. It's just like a lot of things people say. But that's the biggest thing, because people don't know your walk with journey. And I said this earlier in the thing. And again, I don't want to just, you know, overwhelm y'all with the God perspective. But when you hit that rock bottom and you say, God, I'm giving you complete control, sometimes we still want to drive and still want to control. So when I said at that point, like, okay, God, I'm giving you control. And I tell y'all, my nickname will be Hood Bougie, but I pray that hood prayer. I be like, Lord, I need you to be my husband. When my husband walked out, listen, I need a husband, I need a daddy, I need such and such, whatever. And God has been all that to me. I have, like I said, my house is paid for. I have a good job. I have a car. So I really don't have, like, you know, he's been all those things to me. So I don't let the people pressure me into getting in a relationship that's not healthy just to appease them. And they're going on with their own unhappy lives, because people will get you in a situation. I've had people call me and you like, I didn't ask you for any advice. Why are you offering me? And it's bad advice, like especially like older women that's like had a mindset, that the 1913 mindset or the 1920. You be like, you gonna have me all out here messed up. So Maria, I don't let those people influence me, and I stop listening, because again, you will start like questioning yourself. And when I tell you it's going to be awesome, I mean, yeah, I do have my, you know, moments. We all, like, in our walk with God, you do sometimes doubt him and be like, Lord, this not looking right. You know, again, I'm 44. I get lonely sometimes. So I'll be like, okay, it's quiet in this house. But I'm trusting the process, because when he show up and show out, he's going to use me as that woman that, you know, that came through. And he, like I said, I don't know where my Boaz at. He might be in California. I don't know. But God is preparing me. And so we have to stop letting people tell you what you should be in, or, you know, you're too old. Again, God knew I wasn't going to have children at 44. God knew that I was going to be right here. So, yeah, it's hard when we're out here, but I don't listen.
I feel like, that being comfortable with yourself aspect of things, like, what does it take to actually be comfortable with yourself and to, like, be okay with being alone, and also being strong enough to not be influenced by what other people think of you or say to you. Go ahead, Light. You open your mic.
Um, well, I was just going to, my experience is, I guess, really different from everybody else's when it comes to people trying to shame me. I actually received that more as a young person than I do now, because I was so sure of myself when I was a teenager and when I was in my 20s of what I would not accept. And so I walked away really easily, and just confess that I recognized I had sort of issues with my walls and being guarded, but it was really just because I knew that there were certain things I wouldn't accept in my life. I had men in my life when I, even as a teenager and young person, that just didn't, they came with their preconceived notions about what their manhood was supposed to be. And they wanted to impose that on me. And so they wanted to impose a submissive personality on me. And I wasn't that person. So my friends at that young age, feeling that they were supposed to have a relationship. You're supposed to have a boyfriend. Everybody's got a boyfriend. Everybody's doing it. If you keep pushing guys away, you're gonna, be wind up alone. And then they would add that perspective of, I was a full figured young person, and your options are limited because most guys don't like big girls. That turned out not to be true in any kind of way in my life. But that's where a lot of the pressure came from, is that they all felt they had the pressure to be in a relationship. And they felt that I needed to be a part of that. I had to conform. And it just was something that didn't make sense to me. Why I would have to conform? Why would I have to be in a relationship with someone that made me unhappy, someone that wanted to make me smaller than I was. Not that not in size, but as a person, as a personality. Why do I have to change myself in order to be with this guy? It just didn't make sense to me. It wasn't a logical thing. And now in my later years, I, people in my life, they know me. They're like, well, she's just gonna, she's just gonna sort of go her own way. And I accept people into my life. I've had relationships with men that didn't understand that about me also, but I've also had relationships where people appreciated that I was able to just be comfortable in who I was, and I was able to be comfortable walking away. Not that it wasn't hard. Sometimes it was heartbreaking, but I think what Shem said is the most important thing. You have to be able to be comfortable being alone, because being alone with yourself is better, in my opinion, than to be miserable and lonely with someone in your bed. I just don't want that. If you're going to be with me, I need to feel that we're in it together. If I'm going to feel lonely and you're beside me, then you are, as Paige would would say, you're not serving me. This relationship doesn't serve me. I don't need you for any other reason but for us to be together and be comfortable. So if that's not going to happen, I don't need that.
Mm. So some people in the comments, are saying that it sounds sad to be alone, to be single. Some people are saying that it's hard. Some people are saying
Hardly.
that relationships are hard, right?
But
So
Maria, you have to learn how to be comfortable with yourself, because I have a cousin that will not go to dinner by herself. Like, girl, it's awesome to go to dinner by yourself, because what people cancel, like, if you ever went with a girlfriend and you say, I want shrimp. And then she'd be like, well, don't you want steak? You'd be like, but I want shrimp. Then you just compromise to go get the steak, but if you would have went alone, you would have just had your shrimp. So a lot of people just are not comfortable with themselves. And I still struggle with this. Like I said, it's not perfect over here, but a lot of people don't want to be alone with their thoughts. That's why I'm up all night, because I be up here not want to be alone with my thoughts. Because if I turn that TV off, that means you got to really think about that stuff God want to really talk to you about, or that stuff that you really don't want to talk about. So a lot of times when people don't want to be single, they don't want to be alone with those thoughts or themselves.
Interesting. Interesting.
It's not my experience either to that it's a sad situation. I feel happier being able to live my life the way I want to live my life. If someone comes into my life, they have to come in being a complementary factor. If I'm with someone, and I just said it before, if I'm with someone just for the fact of being with that person, that's gonna make me that's what's gonna make me sad. Happiness for me is being able to know that I am true to myself. And as far as, enjoying myself, there are a lot of ways that you can do that. You have relationships that are not necessarily romantic. You know who you are. Being exploratory is actually one of the best things that has happened to me in my life. I think we are so stuck as a society in that traditional relationship ideal. We must be this. And if we're not in a relationship, then we're sad and lonely. Who told you that that had to be the case? And if someone told you that that had to be the case, you need to figure out for yourself why that is. And I agree with Kia, is that you just have to know who you are. You have to be able to be comfortable with who you are, and you decide what your comfort levels are. And then there's no loneliness to it. And then whoever comes into your life, you welcome them and they welcome you, and you bring those lives together. That's just my perspective of it.
And there are a lot of people in relationships, marriages or not marriages, and they're lonely. They're unhappy. They're miserable. So I think it's about what a relationship means for some people as well. For some people, they seek a relationship to, in a sense, and I hate when they say this, to complete me. And that's already starting off wrong, because your wholeness is never going to come from another human being. So if that's what a relationship is going to do for you, you're going to find yourself in a relationship not whole, probably not happy, and eventually lonely too, because it's just, what is it that you want out of a relationship? What does that mean for you? What does, and in some people's case, what is that? What is their relationship fills a void that should have probably been addressed and healed before getting into the relationship, but it didn't. So now they're in a relationship and that void is still there because they tried to fit this person into into that space, right? It's like putting that square into the circle space. It's never going to fit. And so, yeah. And I loved what Kenny's comment was that you had on the screen. There is just this negative perception that people have around singleness. It's seen as, like I said before, I have felt like, oh, do I have a scarlet A on my chest? Like, wow, what's the matter? Like, so really, if I just walked in with a man, that makes me look like what? I'm not understanding that, but that comes from other people's, I would call stinking thinking. They got something off in here.
I'm sorry, Shanae.
No, you're good, Light.
Go ahead.
There's another aspect to it too, and Shem also, he did have drop a lot of really good, points there, because the thing that we have to remember is that the person that you might be with right now isn't necessarily the person that you're supposed to be with. People go into relationships feeling like this is their last chance, and it is rarely your last chance. If you are in a relationship with someone and you're trying to mold them to, fit what you think you need, you are focusing your effort on someone that is not the person waiting for you down the line. And I think that's a major part of what keeps people in relationships that are not healthy for them, because somebody's telling them, and whether it's in the person that they're in a relationship with, or whether it's family or friends, or whether it's just society, that this is the last person that you're going to be with. You don't even know that. If you're focusing so much on the person in front of you, you're missing all of the opportunities that are around you. And that is a bit of a desperation thing. If you learn to let go and say, this is not okay, but who else is out there? And Kia said it. Who else does God have for me? I don't see him. He's coming around the corner, but I have to let go of this thing and remove my energy from that and remove my effort from that and remove every single tentacle that I have into that person. I have to let them go and release myself in order to be available for the person that's coming down the road.
So there's this, you know, I want to go back to the scarcity aspect of things, right? Because I realized that when I did set my standard and I knew exactly what I couldn't tolerate, my negotiables, my non-negotiables, that's when I realized how few options I really had. My options became extremely limited. So, do you guys feel like there is actual scarcity when it comes to meeting your standards? And, you know, is it hard to find someone that is a good match? And does that lead a lot of people to desperation? Like feelings like, you know, I'm never going to find somebody perfect, so I might as well deal with, you know, this little aspect that doesn't meet my requirements.
Well, let me add this, Maria, because I'm very transparent. When I'll just be honest, my husband was the one who, our ex was the one who decided he didn't want to be married. So I did not want to be single. I was like, no, single, no. Like I said, I've never been single. So that was a scary thing to be single. Like I went like, you know, like let's go to counseling, let's do all this or whatever. But again, women, we sacrifice because again, at the time during that period, I didn't realize the relationship was trash. Like Coach always said, trash. It was trash. But I didn't know it at the time because you were so immersed in just want to be in a relationship, want to be connected to someone. So when you're single, like I said, like I have a peace. I can go to bed without feeling like if somebody put their key in the door, like I'll be honest, like I said, I'm transparent. It was an abusive relationship, emotionally, physically, all that. So just the man with just his presence, like would just like have me like, oh my gosh, like here he come again. What we about to argue about today? So why would a woman put herself in any situation? Hers might not be that intense, but why would you want to be in a relationship that's not healthy for you? No matter where, you know, just this prove, like you said, settle. So again, the ladies may not have it intense like that, but we just have to, you know, understand that sometimes God protects us. And in that case, he protected me, but I didn't know that he was trying to protect me. God was trying to protect me from this foolishness. Because again, I could settle. I mean, I'm sure we could have got back together and I wouldn't be single, the 44-year-old lady here with the 2 dogs in the same house by herself. But what do we like sacrifice? Like you said, with the women, we're sitting here like all these women are beautiful. Maria, you're beautiful. Shanae, Layla, and then we have Light on there. Y'all are beautiful women. And it seemed like it would just be easy. Like, okay, you go to the gas station. And I know, like Shanae said, if she wanted one, she could have one. But do you sacrifice? Do you settle? So no, your standards are not too high. So I think we just have to be patient and understand. Because like I said, when you settle, you end up with stuff like you said, man with 3 kids, bad credit, or it's stuff that you normally wouldn't put up with. So I think we just can't settle, Maria, and like I said, those things, the society is like looking at us crazy, like Shanae said, why would somebody accuse? I've been accused, Shanae, of being gay, like, oh, you gay now because you got a nose piercing. How nose piercings, like, okay, like that's the old lady in church. How did that got to do with being gay? Like, what? And then people say things, but yeah, Maria, I think I would rather be single than in a miserable relationship. Because most people are not honest out here, and if you really like was a fly on the wall in most people's houses, those relationships are miserable. Like people are with husbands that are cheating with 2 or 3 girls, you know, all kind of crazy stuff is going on, and people are just accepting and ignoring it. And when you're single, it gets lonely, but you're at peace. You know, ain't nobody bothering you. You know, there's no STDs coming in. You know that you're good. So that's just my opinion. We shouldn't settle.
I just want to add in real quick, just in the light of transparency. I really loved what you shared. Thank you, Kia, for your candor. If I were to have gotten married like my other girlfriend group that got married in their 20s, I'd be divorced today. I can say that with a surety. I would be divorced today in 2021. So it's like, okay, now, yes, I was married. So now what? Because a lot of times, the single thing, it has such that negative connotation, but it's like, so if I had been married, would that make a difference? If I were married and unhappy, would that make a difference? Because then you'd be telling me, well, you need to value yourself more. You should get out this and that. So it's just like, never do it to please people. Always do it because it's what you want to do in your heart. And you found someone that's at the same space with you.
Now, Kenny in the chat asked a really good question. Hold on, let me see if I can find it again. I probably can't find it again. Do you guys believe in soulmates? Is there such thing? Is there like a one person for everyone, and we just gotta wait till that person comes along, and we just gotta find that person? Oni, I haven't heard from you in a long time. What are your thoughts?
I honestly don't know.
Okay. Fair enough. Kojo, you're shaking your head. What are you talking about?
I don't believe in soulmates at all.
Why not?
I just think to myself that there's, if we're talking about soulmates, then the equation's already mashed up, because some of us have been dating several soulmates. I mean, of other people. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if you guys ever watched a show on Netflix called The One. Man, that will challenge your viewpoint on whether soulmates exist or not, because they do an experiment where they have a drug where everybody takes it, or sorry, they do everyone's DNA, and it matches everybody with the one they're meant to be with. But people are already in marriages, people are already in relationships, and they find the one, and to get into those relationships that are with the one who's meant to be their soulmate, they gotta break things down, right? So it's already too late. Okay, so we're already far too gone. When Adam and Eve came out of that Garden of Eden, they done messed everything up. There's no way you're gonna have soulmates. Number two, I think with this soulmates thing, the beauty of marriage, and this is why I think Paul said, Paul was like saying, look, I'd rather you guys be single. It's because like some of the stuff that you're going to experience in marriage, people forget what marriage is. The world takes marriage as we love each other, we're in a relationship. God's looking at like, you better find out how dark you are, okay, in that marriage. Like what we're supposed to see in marriage is the love of Christ in that, and it's a representation of what God does for us. And that's the difficult thing. So as much as I love, I have to also understand that there is a part of suffering in this. The suffering is necessity in order, one, for me to grow, and two, for me to also understand that love doesn't just work when you're amazing. It works at the points when you're not amazing. And how do I overcome those moments? How do I overcome the moments where it's not, I'm feeling it all the time? How do I overcome those moments? So I think with these marriages, you have to understand that when you're getting into marriage, there is an aspect of suffering that you're going to incur, and if you're not ready to suffer, then maybe marriage isn't for you. And soulmates kind of gives that whole thing of we're going to be great forever, my friend. No, it is a work in progress. WIP is work in progress every single day. And so yes, there are people who have better chemistry, right? But I don't know if you've ever been at work, right? There are some people that you just don't like, but they get the job done, and you want them on your team. You don't like them personally, but they get the job done, right? Sure. It's not about the likability factor when you're trying to get something done. And that's almost a bit like marriage. Not like saying you have to don't like your partner, but there are going to be moments where you don't like them. It's about the commitment. It's not about I feel love. It's about the commitment. And so that's why I would say that soulmates doesn't really exist. It's one of those things that people want to put almost as kind of like fantasy, because it kind of it puts a gloss on relationships, to make us be enticed, almost like it's the Hollywood thing again. You know what I mean? Like we want that perfect love. And listen, love is beautiful, but it can also be ugly. Love is also amazing, but it can be painful. And those things have to come into it as well to make us understand that, listen, soulmate is a fairy tale. Okay? It's a fairy tale. You get with someone, you make it work, and you try your best. You understand, to go the long haul and be committed to that person, irrespective of how you feel. Yeah.
Mm, mm,
Just can I just add another bit? Just to
yeah.
add, like a lot of people as well like to compare their relationships to other relationships,
Mm,
especially celebrity relationships. Don't mind what you see on social media. Everybody goes through the same nonsense. Everybody goes through the arguments. It will happen. You will have your arguments. You will have your conflicts. Don't compare your relationship to what you see out there. Work within your relationship with your partner and see how you can make it better. See how you can improve. See how you can move forward. That just it's a whole lot of comparing, a whole lot of you know idolizing what you're seeing out there. The whole, as Kojo said, the gloss. And social media, all you see is gloss. Nobody posts their bad moments. Nobody posts the negative things. It's always the gloss.
they be glossing. Layla, you wanted to jump in. What are your thoughts?
Right. So, on the topic of soulmates, I mean, I don't necessarily think that the term soulmate has anything to do with marriage. I also don't think the concept of marriage originated in anything to do with love. These are all very separate things, right?
Hold
Because
on,
love.
hold on. You just dropped some heavy hitter statements, so run that back.
So when marriage was conceptualized, there is a directive for how you should behave in a marriage, right? And you are instructed to love your spouse. But that is not to say that you chose your spouse due to love, because we know historically that that's not true. People chose their spouses for very practical reasons.
Um, hey guys, hold on. I think I'm gonna have to restart the stream because it keeps clunking out. So we're gonna hold on, let me see. All right, so we're gonna restart because it keeps like
I
clunking
think
out.
YouTube's going down a little bit. I'm seeing the comment chats or whatever. Something's happening with YouTube. In there.
Yeah. So let me end this and then start another one and then we'll start back up.